What's up guys, Gypsy back here today, bringing you week 8 of the NPL, and this week we're going up against my good friend Jolt, amazing player. He's the commissioner of the NPL for anyone who's not actually aware of that. But if you're sub to my channel, then you definitely should be sub to Jolt because, yeah, he over at the Token Minorities, he's doing great things. As I said, commissioner of the NPL, he organised the Summer Showdown tournament that we all just participated in, and he's a great guy. Yeah, I consider him a good friend. He has a pretty incredible team that very much suits his playstyle of bulky offense. I was going to do a team builder for this match, however, I have a feeling this narration is going to go on for a long time because, just a little forewarning for those who are watching, it's a long match. As far as these NPL matches go, I think this is the longest one I've had. It's a very good match in my opinion. Like, it's definitely worth a watch, but I felt as though if I were going to do a team builder along with it, it would just take a bit too long. So I'm going to give a more in-depth overview of what I brought, but I'm not going to do a separate team builder for this one. So jumping right into it, we have a especially defensive Miltank. I'm carrying Sapsiper this week, and this is the first time I brought Miltank. Miltank isn't something my opponents usually think to prep for because I've never brought it up to this point. But it does have nice utility versus his team. He has a Mega Venusaur on his team, which is quite annoying in the fact that it can just spam Sleep Powder, and not having to force a mon to run Safety Goggles is quite nice on my team because all the mons have items that they really do need, and having to run Safety Goggles is just kind of annoying. So my specially defensive Miltank does jack the Venusaur. It can easily tank Sludge Bombs. It's the cleric of the team, and as you'll see, healing off status will come in clutch during this match for sure. I've got T-Wave support on my Miltank, just to T-Wave things like incoming Lucarios who think they can safely switch in. Also pretty nice to paralyze the Mega Venusaur, just reducing its speed in case it is a speedy Venusaur that could outspeed my Metagross. And I've got EQ just for coverage against things like Darmanitan and Lucario. I've got Miltank obviously for that recovery. Next up we've got a nice and powerful Mega Pinsir. Just the typical SD set this week, nothing too crazy. Really just trying to put a dent in his team. The combination of Mega Pinsir and Mew, I feel as though are going to put in a lot of work. The way I've built this team is that Mega Pinsir will either break for Mew, or Mew will break for Mega Pinsir, I guess. We'll get to that in a sec, but yeah, just basically pretty solid coverage for his team. Obviously he has the Aerodactyl, which is a big nuisance for Pinsir. It can't really do much while Stat Thing is still around. If I do manage to get up an SD, Quick Attack isn't even doing that much, even at +2. I think it does just under 50, so yeah, Aerodactyl is definitely a roadblock standing in Pinsir's way. But I do have ways around that, and we'll get to that as we go. Bronzong is also a potential nuisance for the Pinsir. He doesn't really have a reason to run Spit F because I don't have that many special attackers on my team, or special breakers per se. I have potential to run special attackers, but nothing immediately like pressuring his team. So I'm assuming this is going to be a physically defensive Bronzong. Just the way his team looks. He's also got Sylveon as some sort of special tank if he needs to. Next up we have the kind of star of the team, in my opinion, the thing I was most proud of this game, and that is my Bulk Up Mew. Now Bulk Up, I'm running Bulk Up, Substitute, Soft Boiled, and Zen Headbutt. The beauty of this set is that it basically sets up on a lot of mons on his team. Substitute obviously making Toxics from slower mons on his team useless, and once I bulk up a few times, nothing can take me out, and I can kill everything on his team basically. You see he's got the Bronzong there, but I can 1v1 that with my Mew. I am assuming he's not going to run lefties, he's probably going to run something like Cobble Berry, because I do have a Weavile on my team. That is something he does need to prep for, definitely, otherwise it can really just destroy his whole team. So yeah, next up we have my defensive Zapdos. Standard Lucario check. It's pretty nice. The default rocks away for my whole team because my team doesn't enjoy having hazards stacked against it in this matchup at all. It can switch in. It can't really switch into Darmanitan because that thing is just a beast if it's offensive. But it is a pretty reliable switch into Bronzong. If I get Toxic, Miltank can just heal it off with a Heal Bell. Defog is just really important for my team. Next up we have mixed defensive Alamomola. It's got Wish support for all my members, which really appreciate the Wish if I do have to switch into a strong attack from something that Alamomola can't tank. I've got Healing Wish as well, which is going to come in really clutch if I can't Heal Bell my Mew off, so it gets burnt or poisoned and I can't Heal Bell with Miltank. I have Healing Wish as, you know, just a last resort with my Alamamola. Also very nice for Mega Pincer. If Mega Pincer's at 25% or something and I don't have Zapdos around to be able to defog anymore, I can Healing Wish, which actually heals him before he takes the Stealth Rock damage, so provides him, you know, sort of a last attempt to get inside, even if like he has rocks up and he's, you know, the opponent has rocks up and, you know, Pincer's below the 50% mark. I can kind of get it in for free in that regard. At the cost of sacking off Alamamola, that is. And next up we have my nice offensive Metagross. Here to tank hits from Sylveon. Here to do quite a bit of work. Obviously the Bronzong is standing in its way a bit. It's likely Levitate. You know, he doesn't have a really... I do have an Ember on my team, but I don't anticipate him to be running Heat Proof. I anticipate him to be running Earthquake, because that would check my Mega Pinsir really well, actually, if he was Levitate. Yeah, so that is the team. As you can see, he's brought the Aerodactyl, which I'm assuming is going to be one of his main ways to check the Mega Pinsir. He's got Sylveon, which could be a variety of things. Specs doesn't really match up very well versus my team, purely because I do have checks to it, but he could be Specs, which is going to be something I'm going to have to consider. And then you see he's got the Bronzong. The Bronzong is most likely, again, a defensive set, primarily to check my offensive threats like Mega Pinsir. And then you have the Starmie. Starmie could be like offensive, or it could be like a defensive utility set. I think it's more likely to be offensive because it's pretty nice, matches up pretty nicely versus my team. And then you got Lucario, which is a monster as always, and Domanitan. I've got no idea what this thing is going to be. I'm assuming it's going to be a Choice Scarf set, but you know, you never know. You can never really tell with Jolt because he's a fantastic builder. It's very difficult to predict him, what he's going to bring, how he's going to play it. But yeah, he's definitely brought a solid team. I felt pretty confident in matchup. I see no ground types on his team, so Zapdos has a pretty nice time vaulting around on his team, which is nice for sure. But yeah, I do have to definitely watch out for the Aerodactyl. Like, it's going to be hard for Pinsir to put in work until I can get that out of the way. So it's something I've got to consider going into this. We'll jump into the battle now, and I lead off with Zapdos. He leads off with Aerodactyl, so he really gets me on that lead there. This could be a taunt, like Stealth Rocking variant, which is, I suppose, he could even be like a Suicide lead. So, I mean, fairly obvious lead on his part, but I didn't get him on that. I felt as though, you know, I may be able to bluff that I'm a Choice Scarf set, which would force him to switch out into a Sylveon, or even his Bronzong, which is pretty nice. But on the off chance that he does stay in and just go for the Adamant Life Orb Stone Edge, I'm not going to risk my such an important one on my team. I'm going to switch out. But he also switches out, so he may have predicted me to be like a Scarf set and just didn't want to risk it. As in comes his Sylveon. I go out into my Alamamola, and we're in an interesting spot because if this is Specs, then I really need to scout his set before I can start playing comfortably around the Sylveon. It's not worth risking Sylveon getting a Specs hit off on my Alamamola, because this is very important for the rest of his team. So I go into my Metagross, which is my designated switch into any variant of Sylveon. So he just goes for the sub, and that's interesting. I go for the EQ here. Like, he's probably going to Baton Pass here. I go for the Earthquake, just trying to break it. Like, I didn't have any reason to go for the Meteor Mash because it could have missed, and then we would have been in a pretty tricky situation. As in comes the Bronzong, and he's likely just going to set up Stealth Rocks here, which he does, which is very nice versus my team. So I just defog right here. Like, he can Toxic me all he wants, which he actually does. He just goes for the Toxic there. But I'm happy with just keeping Stealth Rocks off the field. I can do decent damage to him with the Heat Wave, as you see there. He does quite a lot as he sets up rocks now, and like, whilst he could play this game back and forth with the Stealth Rocks, I don't think he's going to, because I can eventually take him out with the Heat Wave, and this is such an important member for his team because this is his secondary check to Pinsir. Aerodactyl doesn't really want to switch in and take a return, or a double edge, or a close combat, or whatever it is that I'm packing on my Mega Pinsir. This is a far more reliable check in my opinion, and it's in his best interest to keep it around, so I just go for the defog here as he switches out to his Sylveon. And this is great because now I can just Volt Switch out on this thing. Like, Zapdos is obviously getting whittled by the Toxic, but I do have a Cleric in Miltank, so it's not the end of the world. So right here, I do go out to my Metagross as he just goes for the Wish, and this, I realize that I kind of messed up at this point because he can just go back into his Bronzong and heal it up, and I can't really punish that, unfortunately, because I have no way of hitting this guy super effectively and his Rocky helmet gets a little bit of chip on my Metagross. So this is yeah, definitely not looking too good for me at this point. But I decided to pull the plug and go into my Mew. I figured at this point I may as well click sub and start scouting in sets. So I go for the substitute here, as in comes the Darmanitan, and I felt as though while he could have clicked U-turn here, if he had clicked U-turn, he doesn't know what my set is yet, and he reveals that his Darmanitan is actually capable of resting up, as you'll see later in the game. So I do understand this play. He just wanted to break my scub, break my substitute, and scout my set, which is a good play in his part. I just go for Zen Headbutt here just to scout the damage on this Darmanitan, and that only does 25. So this is definitely not like a physical, like an offensive Darmanitan. This is actually max HP, max defense. Very interesting, very interesting. That's something I was not really thinking that he'd bring, but it acts as a nice sort of Weavile check for sure. That's okay for me. I can just switch out here as I go into my Alamomola, because this thing can comfortably take this Darmanitan on. He goes for the Willow there, and that's fine. I get burnt. It's not nice for like Alamomola's long-term longevity, but I do have a Heal Bella in Miltank, and I already need to Heal Bella anyway because Zapdos is poison, so he's toxic. So I do have a reason to go out to my Miltank. As in comes the Starmie, and this is definitely not too nice, but because I am Spid F, I can tank the Hydro with ease and just heal back up to full. And I go for the T-Wave here, in case he wanted to switch out to Lucario, just trying to capitalize on my potential Heal Bell, or even a Body Slam. And now I can get the Heal Bell off as he switches out and goes right back out into his Darmanitan. So I Heal Bell this turn, and that's pretty nice for me. Darmanitan can't really do too much to me. Like if I was thick fat, then you know, I don't really understand the Darmanitan switching, but Jolt had a plan. Like, this guy always has a plan, so I'm not going to question it. He Willows there as the EQ damage. I go for the T-Wave there, and the EQ damage, it could have taken him out at that point, but I figured he would Willow. You know, T-Wave was my best play, as now he reveals the rest. And this battle just got a lot more interesting, because this thing can basically 1v1. It can't kill my Miltank, but it can, barring crits, if it keeps burning me, it can tank 3 Earthquakes and heal back up to full. So yeah, this game is getting quite interesting. Very interesting set on his Darm. I know that my Alamomola walls it very comfortably. And now I switch into my Mew here, you know, hoping that he doesn't have Sleep Talk, but obviously Sleep Talk is quite obvious, or if he does have Sleep Talk, he doesn't get Flare Blitz, because if I can start bulking up on this thing, then I can basically beat his team, unless if I can get a sub up before he Willows me. But he does get the Sleep Talk Flare Blitz, and that does a ton of damage to my Mew. So we're switching out here. We're not risking another 33% chance to hit the Flare Blitz. That's not something I want to happen, and I don't want to get Willowed either. I know my Alamomola is quite a nice check to this. Obviously he got rest there, so I could have soft boiled it up, but it wasn't really worth the risk in my opinion, because Mew can still do so much work to his team. So Alamomola can come in here and basically just wish up as Starmie comes in, and I figured as though this thing would have T-Bolt. I figured as though T-Bolt was a pretty nice spring for Alamomola. But now I go into my Zapdos, knowing I can take a Hydro. He's not analytic, he's actually Natural Cure, as he revealed. He got the T-Wave off when he switched out last time. My Zapdos survived a Hydro Pump with relative ease at that range of health, just due to my investment. But he does miss it, which sucks. That sucks for sure. It sucks in the sense that, not because it would have damaged me, because Alamomola's Wish would have healed me back up to full regardless. However, the fact that he didn't hit Hydro means that he can't scout my set. He can't scout like how much HP I have, because he would have run damage calcs to determine the damage off the Hydro. So that is definitely unfortunate for Jolt, and no one likes that. Like, I didn't want him to miss that. Like, I was fine to take it. I knew I'd heal back up to full anyway. But obviously, yeah, that sucks for him. There's not much you can do there. I just defog here, figuring he's likely gonna switch out. Getting Rocks off is very nice for the rest of my team, because Rocks is a pain. It's whittling down all my mons, and he just brings back in his Sylveon, so I can just switch out here with the Volt Switch and go back into my Pinsir. Now, the reason I go into Pinsir is because I figured he'd likely Heal Bell if he had it, or either Heal Bell or Wish Up, hoping to pass it to something else the next turn. However, he just goes for a Hyper Voice here. He fires off a Hyper Voice, and this is quite unfortunate, because Pinsir is very important into breaking down his team. So we lose that kind of mind game there. I didn't think he'd hyper voice. I felt as though wishing or heal bailing was his play to make, but he gets me there with a hyper voice, and now in a situation where I can SD and then spank Bronzong with a super effective hit next turn. I felt as though switching out to Bronzong was his best play. So I SD here, but he catches me once again and goes out to his Aerodactyl. Now Aerodactyl is, yeah, very annoying for Pinsir, because if I'd hit him with a return, then it would have done a ton of damage because I am max attack. It would have done huge damage to this thing. Even though it resisted, it would have still done a decent chunk. Meaning that Mew and Metagross have a much easier time taking him down. However, I'm not going to stay in here, even though I'm at +2. A bit of a waste of a setup, but I'm not going to risk it. I'm just going to go out to my Aloe, and I know I can take this thing on quite easily. He sets up rocks again, so revealing rocks on 2 Mons, which is, yeah, really good prep on Jolt's part. But I can just switch up now. So he now switches out to his Darmanitan, and I can get a Scald off, doing quite a decent amount, doing more than the EQ from Miltank was. So yeah, he's definitely Fizz-Def Darm, I should say. He gets the Will-O-Wisp off on the Alomomola, which is annoying for sure, but I do have to go eventually back into my Miltank and heal it up. He just fires off a rest here, and at this point I just Scald once again, just trying to whittle him. We can sort of do this back and forth, because I can wish up, eventually going out to my Miltank and healing up. He chooses to go out to his Stummy here, and I'm just gonna wish up, because I know the fact that I can take a T-Bolt. He's not analytic, he's not Life Orb. I can take a T-Bolt quite comfortably. It only does 41 because I am a very specially defensive Alomomola. I can now wish and pass into my Miltank and get the heal bell off, which will be really nice for my Alomomola. He switches out right here and goes out into his Sylveon once again, and now I just go out to my Miltank. And it's been quite back and forth at this point. I haven't quite managed to grab enough momentum at this point. I've been at the whim of Darmanitan. I've been kind of under the pump by Asu and being pressured offensively by Aerodactyl. I figured now was the time to defog with Zapdos. The fact that I got the T-Wave off means that, yeah, he can get parried, and he's also slower than everything on my team now, which is pretty nice for me. I take this opportunity to defog, and now I stay in a Heat Wave, because if he passed to his Lucario here on my Volt Switch, then nothing on my team wants to take it. I'd have to switch back to Zapdos anyway. I know this turn I can break it with the Volt Switch, so I do decide to just Volt Switch out. Going right out into my Mew, I believe. Into my Alomomola, sorry. So I got into my Alomomola this turn, and now is when I go. We hit the Healing Wish now, because we have to get Mew back up, and this is as good a time as any for me to start setting up and putting in the work. I need to get the offensive momentum back in my favor and stop playing so passively. So Mew comes in right now. It's healed up. I can start to bulk up, because his Hyper Voices aren't going to be doing too much to me. He gets parried there. Definitely unfortunate for him, but pretty nice for me, as now I can just set up a sub in his face as he baton passes and goes out into his Aerodactyl. So the fact that I'm boosted up is quite nice. Behind the sub, he actually taunts here, preventing me from bulking up any further, which is a nice play on his part. But that's fine. I'm pretty bulky at this point, and my Zen Headbutts are going to be doing a pretty solid amount to this Aerodactyl, so I can just break his sub with the Zen as he Home Claws there, and I know that I can 2 KO him with the Zen Headbutt, so I go for the Zen as he breaks my substitute with the Stone Edge. It does 61%, so that was a 2-hit KO, a guaranteed 2-hit KO, and Mew's at a really nice amount of health. The Stone Edge really isn't going to be doing all that much to Mew, and I'm back at full, so I know I can take him out here with the Zen. You see the Stone Edge only does 35, so with the leftovers recovery, I will be at about, I'll be at about 71% or 72% or so, which is really nice. I'm going to be at a really solid amount of health to take on the rest of his team, and considering I'm +1 and very bulky. However, I miss the next Zen Headbutt, so now we're in a situation where he can either Stone Edge again and get about 35%, or potentially crit me and kill me, and I can Roost up, or he can Taunt, and I can get immobilized by Taunt, or he can Stone Edge, and I can Zen. Now, like, it's mind games in a sense. I just Zen here because I know I can Roost up on a lot of members on his team, in hindsight, roosting was the best play because even if he taunted me this turn, I netted another 6% of lefties. So definitely something I kind of didn't really think about too well at this point in the game. But I did predict him to taunt here. He goes to the Stone Edge and does a clean 34%, as I just take him out with the Zen. So Mew's still at a decent amount of health, so we're not in too bad of a situation. I know he's going to Toxic here. I figured he'd likely Toxic my Mew, but that's fine. I can just heal up with a Soft Boiled, and I have Miltank in the back to heal off the Toxic, which is really important because otherwise Mew wouldn't be able to do any more work this game. He switches out here and goes out into his Bronzong as I switch out back into my Zapdos. The reason I go into Zapdos is I anticipated him to predict my Miltank to switch in and either go out to his Lucario. I did think the Lucario was coming in, but he actually chooses to go into his Bronzong, which is just as nice for me because I can threaten this offensively with the Heat Wave. As he goes down to his Sylveon, and I just getting back to full with my lefties is pretty nice, letting me take on the Lucario even better. And I can just Volt out here on his Sylveon. Recognizing at this point that Miltank is a pretty free heal bell at this point because the Hyper Voice is only doing 37, so I can comfortably tank that. And the fact that he's parried, he hasn't shown that he has heal bell, so at this point I'm feeling pretty good about just kind of checking it with my Miltank because he has Wish sub Baton Pass Hyper Voice, so he's not packing a Cleric on his team, which is definitely nice for Miltank, being able to get those paralysis to spread around his team. So I go for the Heat Wave here as he Toxics me after getting up his rocks, and again, like he can't really win this because I can eventually take him out with Heat Wave if he does decide to stay in with my Bronzong, and then Pinsir becomes so much more of a threat versus his team. I defog this turn, so I do get that play right, and now I can just Volt out once again with my Zapdos on the Sylveon, but I don't want to go back into... Like, going back into Miltank is not really the best play at this point because he can then Wish up and go back into his Bronzong without me being able to punish him. So I go into my Mew because I know that this forces him to go into something like Starmie or Domanitan immediately, not being able to heal the Bronzong back up. But he goes out into his Bronzong right here, and I just set up a sub, and this is actually okay for me because now I can just start bulking up. As he now goes out to his Starmie, and I get the bulk up, so I'm at +1. I can start to threaten this thing offensively, even though my stab is resisted by his Starmie. The Hydro is going to break my sub, but it's not going to do too much to me because I'm quite specially defensive. As you can see there, the +1 Zen did 28, so it does take him out at this range, which is really nice. I did predict him to switch out here, but he actually stays in and goes for the Toxic. So had I Zen headbutted here, then Starmie would have been taken right out, and just so he could Toxic me, but I have Heal Bell in the back with Miltank, so I mean, I suppose I understand that because then it forces Miltank to Heal Bell again, but Miltank has a pretty free Heal Bell versus the Sylveon, so I don't know about that, but I just opt to go for the bulk up once more, predicting him to switch out to something like Domanitan so I can take a Flare Blitz more easily. But the Starmie switches out this turn, wanting to preserve it. And I switch out here because I figured the Bronzong was likely to come back in, and I do catch the Bronzong with my Zapdos, so I can once again Heat Wave. If he wanted to bring in his Sylveon that turn, I could have just done rinse and repeat. I could have Heat Waved and then Volt switched out. I do catch him trying to predict me to Volt switch, so I do get the kill with a Heat Wave, which is very nice. Now he can't set up rocks, and at this point Mega Pinsir is looking like a huge threat to his team. So in comes Lucario, and this is kind of his last chance of posing real offensive pressure versus my team. I'm not going to let him set up without punishing him, so I go for the Heat Wave there, and it does a solid amount for sure. He sets up an SD here, and I know his only play is to extreme speed me here, and I can live that due to my investment. And now Volt switch out pretty freely on the Lucario. And while Zapdos is weakened, it is decent sack fodder. It can also roost up on the Sylveon if I can get the Heal Bell off with Miltank. As now in comes Domanitan, and at this point I realize Mega Pinsir kind of wins it at this point. If I can keep this thing down to around the 60% mark, I calced my return does take him out from that range, but he could also heal up, and I can't risk Mega Pinsir coming in. First of all, I need to get a free switch into Mega Pinsir, and second of all, I have to make sure he's at around that amount of health. I get a crit with the EQ there, as he gets the sleep talk rest. Now he rests up again, and you're gonna see a little bit of. I'm just gonna click it to fast now because we have a bit of a rinse and repeat. I'm gonna be trying to whittling him down, and he fully understands that Mega Pinsir basically wins at this point. He doesn't want Dumb Manitan to be too low. He wants it to be able to take a return if it needs to. As he willows here. So we're just, it's pretty repetitive, but I'm not going to choke. I'm going to make sure I'm fine with sacking Miltank as long as Dumb Manitan is below about 70% health. So at this point, yeah, I was feeling quite happy in the sense that like Mega Pinsir does win. I did want to get the last 3 kills if possible with Mega Pinsir just to bump its kill ratio up a fair bit because Weavile's been hogging the spotlight. If you guys have been following me, it's just been chopping up. So it was about time that Mega Pinsir got some love, if you know what I mean. As now he just goes to the rest, and I EQ here. No, sorry, I Milk Drink this turn, and I EQ next turn, and he misses the Willow, which is unfortunate, definitely unfortunate for him. But it was just prolonging the inevitable. As now I can just EQ once more. I'm not really going to be able to like stall him out of rests and sleep talks because my heal bell PP is really running out at this point. He's going to rest up here again, and whilst they could have gone out to something like Metagross or Mew, it wasn't worth it. It was just worth sacking off Miltank, keeping it healthy when I needed to, but eventually sacking it off to this Domanitan. It's a very cool set on Jolt's part. Like I was very impressed with his building. This is a pretty nice check to my Weavile. I'm assuming it's no item, which would mean knockoff does even less. And obviously Ice Shards and Icicle Crashes are going to be doing nothing to this monster. Definitely like an underrated mon in the format for sure. I T-Wave this turn, forcing him to rest up as I Milk Drink. So it is very repetitive, as I said. But yeah, I'm not stalling this for the sake of like a differential or anything. I'm stalling it. I'm trying to get Domanitan to the range of health where it will die to Mega Pinsir's return. And I want to keep my heal bell PP around if I need it. I don't want to do it, unnecessarily. As now I T-Wave here, and eventually he's gonna stop trying to rest up and take me out with Flare Blitz as he gets a crit here. This is fine with me. I'm fine with that crit. Like, it didn't really matter. I just wanted to get a free switch into Pinsir anyway, so I was sacking Miltank. I'm not like salty about the crit whatsoever. Now Mega Pinsir can come in and just click return, easily taking out the Dime from that range of health. And there's no way this Sylveon is living a return. And even if it had Mew and Zapdos and Metagross won at that point. So that was a fantastic game versus Jolt. Definitely an amazing opponent. And I really enjoyed that game, even though it seemed very, like to you guys watching it, it may have seemed very stally, but actually playing it, it was definitely very tense. And it's always that way when I play Jolt because he's such a great player, and he really knows what he's doing. So yeah, props to Jolt for bringing such a cool team. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. This week's match. I know it was a longer one than usual and quite stally in some parts of the match, but that's just how it goes sometimes. That's how it goes in certain matchups, and it can't all be hyper offense. So drop a like if you enjoyed. Next week we're going up against my man Matty Brolick, and it's going to be a clash of the 2 undefeated teams, so I'm really excited for that. And I hope you guys all are too, because I know a lot of my friends are looking forward to that match. I'm going to be leaving Jolt's YouTube link in the description below, so if for some reason you guys aren't subscribed to him, definitely go and drop a sub, because that man is an amazing battler and an amazing commentator. I love his commentaries. I used to watch all of his NPL matches last season. It's what actually got me interested in the NPL. He just has a really amazing depth of knowledge of the game, and he's a fantastic commentator. So yeah, go and check him out. Yeah, and I'll see you guys next time. Let me know what you thought of the team and the match in the comments, all that good stuff, and I'll catch you later.